want to give a special thanks to Zapsplat.com for providing the sound effects and opening music to the chapters. On to the story.
Hello, my name is Augustine. I live in the southern portion of the Santa Monica Bay in a town called Redondo Beach. Back in 2011, there was an extraordinary event that occurred just off our coast, just a few nautical miles. A huge ball of krill came into the bay and rang the dinner bell for a massive pod of baleen whales, particularly blue whales and humpback whales. Not wishing to miss out on this once in a lifetime opportunity, I took the local whale watch boat out, and if one is lucky, you might see one blue whale in the course of your lifetime. Over the course of that hour, I saw no less than 20. At one point, the boat was surrounded by 5 blue whales feeding. It was truly an extraordinary event. So, this kind of percolated in my soul for a few years and inspired me to write the fiction novel Blue. It is about how whales, particularly baleen whales, communicate with each other and the emerging technologies of man to understand what they're saying. I very much love to dedicate this book to my father, Dejan Magagne, and to my nieces. This is the first chapter. It's called The First Sinking. North Philippine Sea, Cotobuki Seamount, 26 degrees, 2708.59 north latitude, by 134 degrees, 1224.81 east longitude. The Japanese whaling vessel Nakanamaru is 4 days into a 10-day assignment to capture a fin whale, adult male preferably, and return to port so that the Institute of Cetacean Research, or ICR, can decode its DNA. However, the crew of the Nakanamaru, commanded by Captain Ryoji Hakamoto, has not seen a single blow of the species which they were sent to capture, and the clock is ticking. He takes a moment after lunch to record the events of the day and his frustrations with the lack of whales in an area that he has harvested with great predictability in the past. Captain's Log, January 5th, 2014, 13:07 hours. Third day of moderate swells and patchy rainfall. Unusual for this time of year, we have seen no sign of... Suddenly a call from the ship's intercom interrupts the captain's fastidious record keeping. In a voice uncharacteristic of the second in command, Akira Azawa, it states loudly, "Captain, to the bridge." Quickly, Captain Hakamoto returns to the bridge to see his 2 senior officers staring perplexed at the radar, when the second in command exclaims, "We either have a super pod of dolphins 4 miles off the port side, or... I don't know. I need information, not guesses, Akira-san." Making his best guess, Akira offers, "The signature does not make any sense, and we cannot see any surface disturbance indicating such a pod. But the radar makes it clear that something very large is heading directly towards us at 7 miles per hour. I don't think it is aware that we are here, whatever it is." Within 10 minutes, the first mate called from the port bow, "I see blows, Captain. From the height, probably blues or fins. At least 20 of them." Another 15 minutes passes. The junior officers are equally perplexed by the captain's indecision. Finally, Akira braves the question, "What are your orders, sir?" Under normal circumstances, Captain Hakamoto would have barked the order, "To your stations, men." But what he was saying simply did not make any sense in Captain Hakamoto's 23 years at sea. "Why are they moving like a pod of orcas on the surface?" he asked out loud. No one could answer. By now, the crew of the 9 men were all on the port side of the ship, watching this armada of whales come straight at them for a broadside, and no one could take their eyes off it. When the whales reached within 70 yards of the ship, they all slipped beneath the surface of the gently rolling sea, except for one adult male blue whale. This single leviathan stayed on the surface, spy-hopping, at the 70-yard mark where the others disappeared. The next 17 seconds were punctuated by the feeling of immediate dread for every man on the ship. The Nakanomaru, built in 1989, has a length of 72.4 meters and a breadth of 11.4 meters. She is built to withstand the roughest open seas, but not this. Nope. A deep, gentle thud rocked the ship as the crew watched in horror as two massive blue whales and four sperm whales lined up and pushed the ship port side against her formidable horsepower into a sideways roll, interrupting forward propulsion. Two panicked men stumbled to the starboard side and jumped overboard, slamming into the hole before falling into the sea. Three others had the choice made for them. They were tossed overboard while the remaining four, along with Captain Hakamura, staggered back to the bridge, hanging on for dear life. Once the rocking motion of the first six whales established sufficient momentum for the ship to reach a 90-degree angle, five more blue whales came in behind and put the ship into a complete capsize. This sends the five men in the bridge slamming against the bulkhead, then the overhead, and back to the deck. As is the design of such ships, it rights itself back up. Captain Hakamura and his gunner are knocked out cold, lying in a grotesque pile together. Second in command Aizawa tries to reach with his right hand for the radio, only to discover that the humerus on the same side has suffered a compound fracture. Switching to his left hand, he grabs the radio and makes the call, "Mayday! Mayday! This is the Nakano Maru. We're under attack. Blue! Blue!" And then the radio went dead, presenting the only words heard by the Japanese Coast Guard. Continuing the attack, the whales pushed the ship up as a group and then, swimming past it and immediately into a circular diving pattern, completed its capsize. They keep the ship rotating, causing it to take on more and more water with each roll until, after the fourth rotation, the ship began to slip beneath the water. Once the ship was just below the surface, six more blues mount her, sending the Nakano Maru to the bottom of the Kotobuki Seamount. The two subordinate officers who first jumped into the water before the initial capsizing swim away from the ship to avoid the fate of their mates. However, their presence in the water does not go unnoticed by the sperm whales. The men treading open water see the sperm whales coming straight for them from the deep. How they now wish that they had gone down with the ship. With a simple flick of a sperm whale fluke, the men are crushed on the water's surface and then tossed like mere toys. It is their injuries, crushed spines, shattered hips, fractured skulls, that lead the coroner to conclude that they died from repeated blunt force trauma and not drowning. There are also signs of puncture wounds on their torsos and skulls, later revealed to be made from large barnacles on the tails of the sperm whales. When the ship comes to rest on the sea bottom, only then do all 38 of the cetaceans go their separate ways into the blue expanse of the sea. The events of the sinking would be a mystery for several months until details of the final report by the Japanese Coast Guard were released. Inward pressure damage to the portside hull of the Nakano Maru, this as well as the damage to the bodies of the two men who first jumped overboard, would defy logic and be ridiculed by all professionals in the field of marine biology. Ridiculed by all except one graduate student completing her PhD intern in marine biology at the NOAA Protected Species Division in Hawaii. Her name is Jennifer Catherine Hudson, and the possibility was outlined in her thesis. That concludes Chapter 1. If you like it, please subscribe and come back for the other chapters. You're going to love it.